My wife took credit for my hard work while cheating, so I cut her out silently. And the fallout left her life in complete chaos. I'm a 33-year-old guy who's always believed in building quietly. I don't crave attention or applause, I just like knowing that my work means something. When I met Haley, I thought I'd found someone who truly saw me. She said she admired how grounded I was, how I didn't feel the need to shout about my wins. We met during a time when I was still working 2 jobs, my day job in IT, and my late-night grind building a tech consulting business out of our cramped apartment. Haley used to bring me coffee during those long nights and call me her silent genius. At first, it felt like we were a team. She handled the little things, cleaning, groceries, dinner, so I could stay focused on the big picture. She would tell her family, "We're building something big," and I thought that was sweet. I figured it didn't matter who got the credit, because we were in this together, right? I didn't realize those words would eventually become her shield and her story. That slowly, though, we would start to erase me. I remember one dinner at her parents' house where her dad said, "You guys are such a power couple, Haley's always had a good business mind." I smiled, biting my tongue. She laughed and nodded like that was normal, like that compliment belonged to her. I told myself not to care, that the results would speak for themselves, that love wasn't about ego. But deep down, a part of me noticed that something felt off. That quiet voice inside started to whisper, "Why does it always feel like she's the star of something you built with your sweat and sleep?" I ignored it. Because I was too focused on building our future, to notice what she was really building behind the scenes. The moment my first major client signed on felt electric, like the air in our tiny apartment had suddenly shifted and charged with possibility. I remember staring at my laptop screen at 2:14 a.m., the glow reflecting off half-empty coffee cups and scattered notebooks, whispering, "This is it, this is what all the pain is for." When I told Haley, she squealed and threw her arms around me, laughing, "I knew it, I knew you were going to make it." Her voice sounded proud, almost triumphant, and for a second, I let myself believe we were celebrating something shared. But the tone started to change fast. Suddenly, she was inviting people over just to talk about my work. I'd hear her in the living room saying things like, "We're scaling up our client base now," or "Our strategy is all about long-term retention." I'd walk by, confused, because she'd never sat through a single strategy call with me. One night, after she'd finished telling her friend how intense it is running a business, I asked softly, "Why are you making it sound like you're the one doing all this?" She laughed and brushed my shoulder. "Babe, relax. I'm just hyping us up. That's what a good wife does." I wanted to believe that. I wanted to feel like her words came from love, not ambition. But every time she posted a picture of my desk with the caption "Late Nights Building Our Empire," something inside me twisted uncomfortably. Our empire. My exhaustion. My 16-hour days. My hands cramped from endless typing. And yet, she was the one soaking in the praise, smiling at compliments that didn't belong to her. At a neighborhood barbecue, a guy asked her, "So what exactly do you do for the company?" She didn't miss a beat. "I handle the vision and growth side of things. He's more technical." I stood there frozen, the smell of charcoal thick in the air, heat pressing against my skin, questioning whether I was overreacting, or just finally seeing clearly. And as I watched her laugh effortlessly, soaking up admiration that should have felt like ours, a quiet dread crept into my chest, because I realized she wasn't just celebrating my success, she was claiming it. Haley always loved taking pictures, but somewhere along the way, the camera started pointing more at her than at us. What used to be the occasional selfie turned into full-blown branding shoots, coffee cup in hand, laptop propped open, our cluttered living room staged to look like a chic home office. She launched an Instagram account called @Hustle with Haley, and at first, I thought it was cute. I even helped her set up a Squarespace site when she said she wanted to inspire other women to chase their dreams. It didn't register that her dream looked suspiciously like the business I built. Before long, she was posting motivational quotes like, "Behind every empire is a woman who saw the vision first." I'd scroll past them while debugging code at 3 a.m., my fingers aching, wondering if anyone would ever know the real story. She started filming reels of herself typing dramatically while I worked in the background, no sound, just her eyes darting around like she was running a Fortune 500 company. People flooded her comments with "You're such a boss," and goals, and she replied to every one of them with heart emojis. I stayed quiet. I thought, maybe this is just the new version of support. Maybe this is harmless. But it didn't feel harmless when she got invited onto a podcast about women in tech entrepreneurship and introduced herself as a founder of a rapidly growing consulting firm. No mention of me. No mention of the nights I spent sleeping on my keyboard or missing holidays to deliver on deadlines. Just her voice, polished and assertive, telling my story like it was hers. Later that night, I asked, "Why didn't you say it was our company?" She paused, then smiled. "It just flows better when I keep it simple. You know how media works." I nodded, but my stomach twisted. And that's when I started to realize, she wasn't just building a brand, she was rewriting our reality. One caption, one interview, one polished lie at a time. It started with the conferences. At first, they were small, local networking events she said she needed to keep our momentum going. She'd come home late, smelling like wine in hotel lobbies, her voice buzzing with names I didn't recognize. Brent, Alicia, Marcus, people she swore were just contacts. She told me not to worry because these events are how real businesses scale, and I wanted to trust her. But the more she traveled, the more I felt like a footnote in the company I created. I remember one night, she came back from a 3-day trip to Chicago. I asked how it went, and she gave me a vague smile. "It was productive," she said, dropping her bag on the floor. "Lots of ideas." Then she went straight to the shower, shutting the door before I could ask anything else. I cleaned up her coffee-stained travel mug and noticed she left her laptop open on the kitchen island. My hands hesitated over the keyboard, but something in my gut felt wrong, like I was standing outside a house that looked familiar, but the windows were all dark. I clicked her browser tab and saw a Slack chat. A conversation with someone named Brent. Nothing explicit, just little things. Inside jokes. A picture of a wine glass. A message that said, "You always make those long nights worth it." My heart didn't explode, it sank. Quiet and slow, like a stone dropping into deep water. I didn't say anything that night. I just closed the laptop, sat on the couch, and stared at the wall until the room went cold. I wasn't ready to confront her. Not yet. I needed to be sure. I needed to see the full picture before I tore our life apart. But in that moment, something inside me shifted. Because I wasn't just tired from building anymore, I was tired from being blind. The days that followed were filled with quiet calculation. I started paying attention to the way she spoke when she answered calls, how her tone softened, how she always stepped outside or into the bedroom to take them. I knew it was Brent. I didn't even need proof anymore. But I needed clarity, not just about the affair, but about how deep the betrayal went. I started checking her email drafts, her cloud storage, her shared calendars. What I found made my skin go cold. She'd been in contact with Brent for nearly 8 months. At first, it was subtle, business ideas, flirty banter, memes. But then it turned into strategy calls. She'd forwarded him client presentations, back-end workflow documents I'd spent weeks developing, and even screenshots of our revenue numbers. There was a message from her that read, "He does all the work, I just package it and make it shine. He'd be lost without me." I sat there, rereading that sentence over and over until the screen blurred. In another thread, she sent Brent a photo of our apartment, my setup, my workstation, with a caption that said, "This is the engine. I'm the driver." She wasn't just cheating emotionally. She was mocking me. Diminishing me. Turning me into a background character in the story of my own success. The worst part? She was starting to prep something. A new brand, a website mock-up, even a name that sounded eerily similar to mine. I realized she wasn't just building a future without me, she was preparing to replace me entirely. My face, my grind, my code, my relationships, all used as scaffolding for the empire she planned to call hers. I closed her laptop and just sat in the dark for hours. The glow of the screen still burned into my eyes. The woman I loved wasn't just lying. She was stealing my life, one file, one message, one smile at a time. It hit me one morning while reviewing my client logs. She wasn't just leaking my material, she was actively trying to poach my clients. I saw an email reply from a long-term client saying, "Thanks for connecting me with your partner. Looking forward to the new proposal." But I hadn't connected anyone. I hadn't sent any new proposal. My hands froze on the keyboard, heart pounding like I'd been caught in a lie I never told. I reached out to the client casually, asking for clarification, and he forwarded the thread. It was Haley. Using a new email with a sleek domain I didn't recognize, pitching streamlined services under her upcoming brand. She framed herself as the original mind behind the systems I'd designed, offering to transfer select clients to her newer, more personalized agency. And Brent? He wasn't just flirting anymore, he was listed as her co-founder. She had even copied the core language from my site, word for word in places. My mission statement. My client onboarding process. My signature pricing model. All duplicated like a second skin she'd peeled off me. I couldn't breathe. It wasn't just betrayal, it was strategic erasure. She was planning to relaunch a version of my company without me, using everything I had built as the blueprint. I pictured her sitting at her laptop while I worked in the next room, smiling sweetly while dismantling my livelihood behind a password-protected browser tab. But I didn't lash out. I didn't scream or flip a table. I sat with it. And for the first time in weeks, my mind stopped spiraling. Because something inside me clicked, she thought I was too soft to fight back. She mistook silence for weakness. And that's when I knew, if she was going to play this like a game, then I'd start planning a checkmate. Quietly. Precisely. One move at a time. The next morning, I met with an attorney, someone I knew through a client who specialized in intellectual property and digital business protections. I laid everything out, timelines, contracts, shared files, client communications, and the evidence I'd collected from Haley's unauthorized usage. He didn't even blink before saying, "You've got a textbook case of misappropriation. Let's lock this down." Within days, we filed paperwork formalizing sole ownership of my business, registering trademarks, and placing digital watermarks across every proprietary asset I'd ever created. It felt surgical, clean, cold, and long overdue. I changed every password, revoked her back-end access, and rerouted business emails without making a sound. She didn't even notice. She was too busy uploading soft-focus selfies about manifesting your own destiny. I built a mirrored decoy document with false pricing and client data, embedded with a tracking signature, and let it sit in a shared folder I knew she still secretly accessed. Within 48 hours, that document appeared in an email she sent to a client, disguised as a pitch from her and Brent's new agency. That was the breach we needed. My lawyer immediately issued cease and desist letters to both Haley and Brent, citing intellectual theft, attempted client poaching, and violation of proprietary agreements. We didn't accuse, we documented. There were no angry texts, no confrontations in our apartment. Just clean, undeniable receipts. She hadn't just betrayed me emotionally. She'd committed business fraud, and now it was in writing. I watched her open the letter that evening, sitting across the table like any other night. Her face shifted from confusion to panic, her hands trembling as she reread the document in silence. She looked up at me, eyes wide, voice cracking, "What is this?" I didn't answer. Because it wasn't time to explain, it was time to let the consequences speak louder than I ever had. We didn't yell. There were no shattered glasses or slammed doors. Just silence, cold and weighted, as Haley sat across from me at the kitchen table, reading through the pages of her own unraveling. Her hand hovered over the cease and desist letter like it might disappear if she blinked fast enough. "You're overreacting," she whispered, her voice trembling but still trying to sound dismissive. "This is just a misunderstanding, we were just brainstorming ideas." I didn't say a word. I slid a folder across the table with printouts, screenshots of her messages, file timestamps, domain registrations, client pitches. Her betrayal in hard copy. Her face crumbled. First came denial, frantic, disjointed. Brent and I were just talking concepts. I wasn't going to actually take anything. I was going to tell you. I was going to loop you in. Then rage. She stood up, voice cracking into shrill disbelief. I supported you. I helped you build this. You wouldn't even have a business without me hyping you up. Her words echoed against the walls, but I stayed still, calm, unmoved. For once, I wasn't shrinking. I wasn't trying to salvage peace. I said only one thing: you didn't help me build this. You helped yourself to it. She collapsed back into the chair, mascara streaking down her face, fists clenched in her lap like a child caught stealing. What are you going to do? She asked. Sue me? Ruin me? The desperation in her voice wasn't about guilt, it was fear. Fear that I had turned off the faucet she drank from while calling it her own well. I stood up, grabbed my keys, and said, the business is protected. The partnership is over. You'll be getting the separation papers this week. Then I walked out, leaving her in the home I paid for, surrounded by the empire she thought she could steal. And for the first time in years, I didn't look back. I didn't post anything. I didn't announce what happened. I didn't need to. The damage she caused unraveled on its own, like a thread pulled too tight. The cease and desist letters had a ripple effect. Clients she tried to poach forwarded her emails to me, confused and embarrassed. One even said, I had no idea she wasn't actually involved. She made it sound like she was the brains. That one stung. Not because I didn't expect it, but because it confirmed just how far she'd gone in rewriting our history. Brent disappeared almost instantly. His name was quietly removed from their half-built website, his LinkedIn mysteriously deactivated. I heard through mutual circles that he'd backed out the second lawyers got involved. Haley tried to keep the brand alive, rebranding it as Haley Creative, but the moment she started posting again, she got called out, comments asking why her business partner had filed legal claims. Screenshots of her earlier posts began circulating. Someone even compared her captions word for word with mine. The internet did what it always does, it kept receipts. She went from glowing CEO to ghosted overnight. Invitations dried up. Podcast hosts pulled her episodes. A marketing group she was supposed to speak at restructured their panel. Her carefully crafted image crumbled, pixel by pixel. And I didn't say a word. I just kept working, kept building. Clients respected the way I handled it, calm, professional, quiet. One even said, I wish more people protected themselves like that. You did it right. I never had to expose her. She exposed herself. And the part that hurt her most? It wasn't the legal letters, or Brent abandoning ship, or losing followers, it was that I never lashed out. I gave her nothing. No drama. No fight. No attention. Just silence, and it swallowed everything she built. It didn't take long before I heard she'd moved back in with her parents. Someone sent me a screenshot of her farewell post, one of those long, cryptic captions about healing and letting go of toxic chapters. No apology, no ownership, just carefully worded victimhood wrapped in aesthetic grief. But the damage had already been done. Her name was attached to too many stolen ideas, too many inflated claims, too many digital trails. And the internet, as always, never forgets. She tried applying for jobs in the same industry, but word had spread. A few recruiters I knew told me she'd been blacklisted after multiple firms compared her resume to content she never actually created. Her reputation was radioactive, too messy to justify the risk. Even the women's entrepreneur circles she once bragged about quietly pushed her out. She emailed one of my clients, again, asking if they'd reconsider working with her now that things had calmed down. The client forwarded it to me with one line, she really doesn't get it, does she? Haley spiraled after that. Her Instagram went dark. The podcast links disappeared. The brand's website expired. People who once reposted her quotes deleted their tags, trying to scrub themselves clean of the association. Meanwhile, I rebuilt quietly. I brought on 2 new clients, upgraded my systems, and moved into a new workspace, one with a door that locked and no echoes of stolen conversations. I don't celebrate her downfall. I don't need to. That would mean I'm still giving her space in my head, and she doesn't live there anymore. But I do remember the silence after she fell. Not because it was peaceful, but because for the first time, the noise wasn't mine to carry. She had lit the match. And now, she was the one standing in the ash. It had been months. I hadn't seen her, spoken to her, or even thought about her beyond the occasional forwarded email or quiet update from someone in the industry. Then, one rainy Thursday afternoon, she showed up at my office. No warning. No message. Just her, standing outside the glass door, soaked and shaking, holding a paper cup of coffee like it was a peace offering. For a split second, I didn't move. Part of me thought I was imagining her. But then I opened the door, and there she was, smaller somehow, like a shadow of the woman who once stood on stages claiming to be a visionary. "Can we talk?" she asked. Her voice was quiet. Not manipulative, not angry, just broken. I didn't invite her in. We stood under the overhang just outside, the sound of rain hitting the sidewalk between us. She started talking fast, like if she didn't say it all at once, it would dissolve. I lost everything. Brent used me. My friends stopped talking to me. My parents won't even look at me. I was wrong. About everything. I didn't interrupt her. I let her speak until her voice cracked and her hands trembled. Then I finally said, "Why are you here, Haley?" She looked up, eyes brimming. "Because you were the only person who ever actually believed in me. And I destroyed that. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I had to try." I took a long breath, the kind you take before putting something down for good. "You didn't just destroy trust, Haley. You tried to erase me and replace me. That wasn't a mistake. That was a plan." She didn't argue. She just stood there, crying in the rain. And I realized, in that moment, that she wasn't looking for forgiveness. She was looking for the version of me who still needed her. But he was gone. I never told anyone about that final conversation. There was no point. No closure to chase, no revenge left to serve. She had already lost everything, and I had no interest in watching her bleed for it. I didn't post cryptic messages. I didn't brag about what she did. I didn't warn the next guy she dated. I just let her go. Fully. Without noise. Without fire. In the months that followed, my life changed, not dramatically, but intentionally. I signed 2 more long-term contracts. Hired my first full-time team member. Got invited to speak at a conference, the same one she once posted about like a badge of honor. But when I stood on that stage, I didn't talk about betrayal or theft. I talked about resilience. Boundaries. The silent strength of rebuilding without needing applause. Friends asked me sometimes if I ever heard from her again. I'd just shake my head. There was nothing left to say. Last I heard, she moved to another city, started a small freelance gig. No more public branding. No more CEO hashtags. Just silence. Fitting. I used to think power was loud. That to reclaim your life, you had to fight, scream, burn things down. But I learned something quieter. More permanent. Sometimes power is saying nothing. Doing nothing. Just stepping back and letting someone destroy themselves with their own decisions. And for me, healing wasn't dramatic. It was quiet mornings. Real laughter. Clients who respected my name because they knew the truth behind the screen. She may have rewritten the story for a while. But I kept the receipts. And now, I live a life where no one questions who built it. Not because I told them. But because the silence spoke louder than she ever did.